give you a countdown. There you go. We're live.
Are we live?
We are. Hi,
Cool.
everyone. Very happy to be live with Neil Lancaster. Do you want to start us off with an intro to you and your books?
You broke up. Sorry, I've got a slightly shugly signal at the moment. Can you try that one again?
Do you want to start us off with an intro to you and your books?
Yes, my name's Neil Lancaster. I'm the author of... Actually, it's 3 series of books now. I wrote the Novak series a few years ago. My main series is the DS Max Craigie series, which is a Scottish crime series about a anti-corruption team working in Scotland. I also write under my nom de plume of Max Connor, a new series with another book coming out in June. First one was out last year. Which are sort of spy thrillers, really. So I live in the Scottish Highlands with my family and my little dog, and who some of you might have seen saying hello to the Binman. She's become a bit of an internet star recently for that. So yeah, that's what I do, and it's good fun.
Good introduction. This new one set partly in York, right?
Well, yeah, it opens in York. I think that's the only time it's in York. But yeah, it opens in York, and this is not a spoiler. It opens where there is a Jewish author and journalist and author who is at an event at Waterstones, and he leaves the event thinking he's going home, where he gets a strange phone call from someone saying he has to look out. He has to watch out for himself because there are some people who want to harm him. And this turns out to be very true, because he gets into a car and he doesn't know it, but there is a car bomb affixed to the underside of his vehicle, and it kills him. And that's where it starts. And it's initially the concept and the blame is pushed towards Islamic extremists. But as Max and his team become involved, because Barney, who is ex-MI5, who is the team's technical expert, is contacted by an old MI5 colleague to say that there are bad things happening, and they're not all linked to what it may seem to be. So there is a tangled web, and there are a number of other murders that happen. And it seems that there are some people behind the scenes pulling the strings. So it's Max and the team's job to sort of get to the bottom of it.
Fair enough. You've got some hellos. There's Leslie, Sarah, Sharon Birch are all saying hello.
Oh, hello everybody. How are you? Hang on, I'm just going to reach it. It's Friday night after all, so I'm going to have a little drink of my beer.
Sarah says she's looking forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, we need to look at that. A few of the events have been cancelled. So yeah, let's we'll be checking out. Hopefully, any events that are happening we'll hear about. There have been a couple of cancellations, unfortunately. It's pretty tough out there at the moment. I think people are getting a bit worried about putting petrols in their cars and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty tough out there.
You got more hellos rolling. You're very popular on this.
Am I?
Yeah.
I'm not normally popular.
Mary says good evening from Northamptonshire.
Hello there.
Laura says hi. She loves seeing Peggy and the Binman on Insta.
Hello, Laura. Yes, no, she's my social media star. She's my total social media star. I've gone viral with lovely Peggy and the Binmen recently, so that's been good fun.
Sarah wants to know who you'd see playing Max if he was to come to the TV screen. That's a bit of a sword, isn't it? Because if you say someone and then they don't end up playing Max.
Well, I honestly can't. I don't even really know what Max looks like. I don't know in my head what he looks like. I know he's tall, and he's not got any hair. He's bald, and because he shaves his head because he's somewhat follically challenged. So I can't particularly picture Max in my head, but I can picture Ross Fraser in my head. And to me, if I had my chance of dream casting, it would be Peter Mullen, who is a wonderful Scottish actor, who plays a rough type character really, really well. I first saw him in Train Spotting, which is, what's that, 30 years ago? And he's a fabulous actor. So I can see him, but I can't see Max. I don't know who I would get to play Max. If anyone can think of anyone, put him in the comments, which I don't think I can see. But you can't.
They don't pull through.
Right. Okay.
Sorry. Laura says she loves Barney. He is great though, Barney.
Well, Barney is actually my favourite character. He is the most fun to write because I like celebrating the old guys, and Barney, I don't know quite how old he is. Haven't totally worked that out. And I like to be fairly cagey with that because I don't want everyone to think that he's a bit too old for it. But I suspect he's in his early 60s, which so am I. That's even more worrying. I'm saying he's like an old guy, and that's me. And yeah, he's Barney's ex-MI5. But Barney's always skint because Barney's got an unfortunate relationship with bookmakers, and he lives in a camper van. And I just think that's really, really amusing. And he's got this sort of sardonic Yorkshire wit, and he rubs Ross Fraser up the wrong way. And he's a fabulous character to write. He gives me a lot of my comedy lines, and he very often finds himself being a scene stealer. So yeah, I love Barney as well.
I think that the sort of humour in yours balances out the storylines quite well, isn't it? Because the ones I've read of yours have always had quite a dark storyline.
Yeah, I mean, look, it couldn't be darker than I deal with in this book. Book is about what they call the criminal proxy method of espionage. This is as much a political thriller, a political spy thriller, as it is a police procedural, really. Because to be honest, I'm not going to lie, it's probably my first love. My first love are spy thrillers, and you have this. I mean, it all came from the fact. I mean, the inspiration behind this book was I don't know if anyone remembers, but a couple of years back there was an arson attack on a warehouse in East London, and it all looked just like a standard, arson attack for whatever reason it may be. But as the police investigated, they realised that the warehouse was actually owned by a Ukrainian company, and that this company was sending humanitarian aid over to Ukraine alongside Starlink equipment to give them the access to the internet, which obviously they need for flying drones and all this sort of stuff. And then it became even more clear a little while after this particular attack, because there was another attack at a warehouse in Germany for the same company. And when the police investigated, they realized that we weren't dealing with spies here. We were dealing with what I like to call useful idiots. These were just local petty criminals who had been paid very small amounts of money to douse this factory in petrol and burn it down for the benefit of Russia. And these guys had actually been recruited willingly by the Wagner Group, who are a criminal proxy element of the Kremlin. And so that just struck me as something that's really, really interesting to look into about the way that espionage and spying has changed. I mean, it used to be your spy would probably be somebody at the embassy who had a cover job at the embassy. They could be like a second secretary or something like that. But then when it came to it, they remember the FSB, and they would be out there trying to do their stuff. Well, it's got really hard since the Ukraine war and since the Salisbury poisonings of the Skripals, because Britain, they expelled, I think, about 130 diplomats from the Russian embassy. So, it is a dark subject. And, this is all about the backdrop is the war in Ukraine. It's about furthering Putin's aims. So it is really dark, and the subject matter is really dark, and people get killed in this book. People get murdered, and I don't want it to become too dark. I don't want it to get so dark that it feels depressing. And the one thing I know about policing, obviously, as a police officer for a long time, is that there's a lot of humour, even in the worst times, particularly at the worst times. There's a great deal of humour. There's a great deal of banter. The characters that I write about in the Max Craigie novels, they're not unheard of. These people really do exist. One or two of them are based on real people. So yeah, I mean, much as it is dark, I do want there to be some humor. I want people to smile and laugh, and at the thing, at the relationships, at the banter, and the fun, how much these guys really like each other.
The people on the stream are making my job easy today because there's so many comments. So Alex says hello. So does Donna.
Hi, Alex.
Sharon said Mark Strong for Max Craigie, but he might be a bit too old now.
Mark Strong. See, I'm rubbish at things like this. I never know who anybody is. I'm gonna have to look on my phone now. I'll have to look on my phone so I know what Mark Strong looks like. Hang on.
Mary says, "Can I ask if Neil is coming south, please?"
Am I coming south? Mark Strong, yeah, he might be a bit old. He's 62. He is too old. He needs to be 20 years younger than that. But I get your point. Am I coming south? I am coming south, but I'm coming south and then I'm going straight out again. I'm going to Denmark next week for a really lovely festival called Krimmessen, which takes place in an old prison in Horsens. And it's fantastic. So I'm going there with some... there's not that many British writers going over. Mark Edwards is going over. Ellie Griffiths, who is like a legend. I mean, she's a legend everywhere, but she's a particular legend in Denmark. And Lisa Jewell. So yeah, really excited. Oh, and Sam Holland as well is going over. So really looking forward to that. I'm also going to be appearing on the Crime Agents podcast. I don't know if anyone's aware of that. It's run by Andy Hughes, who's LBC's crime journalist, and Neil Basu, who's an ex-assistant commissioner from the Met Police. So I'm going to be going and hanging around with those guys for a little bit. So no particular events. Events are getting to be a bit of a tough sell at the moment, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm busy, but but I will be in some places. Capital Crime, yes, just remembered. I'm at Capital Crime. Oh, that's a secret. Don't tell anyone, okay?
Just a secret between us on here.
And then, of course, come October, I'll be at Chiltern Kills, because Tony Kent will never forgive me if I don't go.
Fair enough. The other part of Mary's question was, she said you were recommended to her by a friend who worked at the Met.
All right, okay. Well, that's always...
She thinks that you seem to know a lot about guns. Did you research them yourself?
Well, I was in the military for a few years, 6 years before I joined the Met. My son is also a Royal Marine Commando, so I know where to look. I know who to ask. I'm not a gun. I haven't picked up a gun since I left the military in 1990. So, my knowledge isn't current, but I know where to look and I know who to ask.
Do you think that's a remnant of sort of having been in the military and things? Because my dad was in the military and was a good shot, but he's never done it since leaving.
Yeah, I didn't really have any interest in it, to be honest. I mean, the thing of being an armed police officer is, obviously the police in the UK is not routinely armed. It's not like everywhere else. So if you were a firearms officer, you were a firearms specialist, and I didn't want to do that. That wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a detective. I really wanted to be a detective. I wanted to go up against what I felt to be the worst criminals I could put myself up against, and use. It was great to be able to use like covert methods and surveillance and bugging houses and tracking cars, and this is kind of where my love for that sort of the technical side of policing comes in, which obviously always plays a large part in my books. So yeah, it's just how life turns out,
Margaret said it's finally something to look forward to on Friday the 13th. Are you chatting?
Oh, well, that's nice to know. Yeah, Friday the 13th. Is there I don't know. Is that yeah, that could be dodgy. That could be dodgy.
Sharon says, do you think you'd write a female assassin style cop?
A female
assassin style cop. Do you think that would be something you would write?
Well, I also write. Obviously, I write some spy novels under the name Max Connor, and it's not going to be out this year, but there's a book coming next year that has an assassin that is the most disturbing character I think I've ever written. That won't be out till next year, but this is one that chilled me to write, and that I'm really excited about. I'm just about to do. I've written the book. I'm about to do the second draft of it, and I think I nailed it with this one. So yeah, watch out for that.
You got another suggestion for Max?
Okay.
Richard Rankin, apparently, for Max.
Yeah, he played Rebus, didn't he? So I don't know if I am quite good mates with Ian Rankin, so I don't know what he would think about that. Yeah, no, he's great, and if he hadn't been used as Rebus, I'd be all over that, because that would be great if I could get him to cut his hair. But yeah, no, I agree. He was great. I loved the Rebus adaptation. I thought it was terrific.
And Alex says, given that you're going to Denmark, have you ever considered setting a Max book abroad?
Not abroad yet, no, but I've stretched my wings in the Max Craigie. This one, he isn't purely in Scotland. He spends a fair bit of time in the northeast of England, basically because Franklin Prison is obviously in Durham, and there's a fair amount that happens in around Durham. So yeah, he's stretching his wings. And I'm currently writing. I've currently just finished and sent to my agent the 8th Max Craigie book, and a significant proportion of that happens in Devon, because policing does not know borders. It doesn't recognise crime, and criminals don't care about a border that is only a line on a map. They really don't. So yeah, I'm getting him to spread his wings, but I haven't got overseas with him yet. But my spy novels are all over the world. I mean, the one that's coming out, my Max Connor book that's coming out in June, is nearly all based in California, which was a load of fun to do.
They're quite journeys. So do you travel to the places when you're researching them? Have you been to California to do the research for the book? Did you go to Devon?
Well, I mean, I was going to California anyway, because I've got a load of family over there. A load of my family live in San Luis Obispo, because my dear departed auntie, married a GI at the end of the Second World War. So I've got this whole branch of the family who are over in America at the moment. I feel really bad for them with everything that's going on at the moment, because they're all really great guys. They're already quite liberal, and they're as horrified by what Trump is doing as any of us. So yes, I did go to California, and I did research this book in California. I mean, it's set in a place called Morro Bay, which is absolutely stunning. But I was going there anyway, and I just decided to, use the time and think, oh, this is a great place. This would be a great place to set a book, because it's proper like small town America, but it's really quite nice, and it's right by the sea, and it's quite wealthy in places, and it just struck me as a place where there could be some real badness going on. So yeah, I set a whole book around there but I was going there anyway. I don't get about that much, because it's so easy now to do it from your desktop. You can literally walk the streets on Google Earth and Google Maps. I mean, a book that I've literally just finished, another one of the Max Connor ones, a large proportion of that is based in Russia, and I could walk around the streets of St. Petersburg. I could literally do it. I could literally walk down with them, so it has made a writer's life a lot easier. I mean, my absolute hero in writing is an author called Desmond Bagley, and my favorite book of all time is called Running Blind, which is all set in Iceland. And of course, back in 1970, when that book was published, he would have had to go to Iceland to find all that out, which I think is fabulous. But I haven't got to do that as much, so it does make it a bit easier.
Good inspiration of an author. No one really talks about Desmond Bagley anymore, do they?
Oh, I do. I talk about all the time.
Like, I don't think he's as well known though, as he was at one point.
He was very much second fiddle to Alistair MacLean and Len Deighton in terms of these type of thrillers that he wrote. But I think that's kind of unfair, because I think he was the master. But not everyone would agree. But yeah, the books are terrific. I encourage anyone to certainly read Running Blind. It's still my favorite book.
I mean, it's set in Iceland as well, which is one of my favourite places on earth. So I think that would draw me in.
Yeah, it's an incredible book, and it still stands up today. I mean, it's of its time, but no mobile phones and no computers or anything like that. So, but it's still terrific.
Do you? I have not read the latest Max Craigie yet, but that's only because I don't have time. Like, it got published yesterday, didn't it?
Yes, yeah, literally yesterday.
So I didn't have time. Did go back and read book one though, in preparation.
Thank
I thought
you.
to start at the beginning because I read them a bit out of order. So I was like, I'm going to start back at the beginning. That was like a really clever plot.
Yeah, that was. I tell you what, that book. I mean, I've told this story a lot because the whole thing of the grave, that's a real grave. I mean, the book's obviously called Dead Man's Grave, and I was writing the Tom Novak series at the time. This will go back to 2019, Christmas 2019. We got invited. We had some good friends who were all had a load of family coming over from all over the world. And they were taking over this massive, great, like a mansion in the Scottish Highlands, and they invited us down. So we went down, and I got chatting to this old guy, who was the father of one of my friends, and he was as Scottish as it's possible to be, but he'd actually lived in Australia for the last 50 years, and he's a big fan of books, and he'd read all my books, and he said, "I love your books." He goes, "But can I tell you this story?" He goes, "And maybe you could use it in a book." Now, I mean, normally you hear that and you think, "Oh yeah, well, this is going to be rubbish," but it actually was great. And he said that he was researching his wife's family because he wanted to know more. They wanted to know more about them. And as part of that, they ended up in this graveyard in Caithness, which is a couple of hours north of me. And I live a long way up. And Caithness is really wild. It's really bleak. It's really open. No trees or anything like that. And he goes, and I found this graveyard that a legend had something to do with his wife's family. But it wasn't attached to a chapel. It was just in the middle of a field with a dry stone wall all around it. And he creaked open the gate, went to it, and most of the gravestones had fallen over. It had been completely unloved. And then he cleared off the brambles and the bracken off one particular grave, and it just said, "This grave never to be opened." And I was just, oh, wow, that's so impactful. And I don't know I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how I would deploy it as a book. I knew I didn't want to do historical fiction because I'm not clever enough to do that, and it takes a lot of work. You've got to research really heavily. Someone said to me, "Why don't you do a pandemic thriller? It could be This was 2019 going into 2020. Who wants to read about that?" So I thought, how do I turn this into a contemporary crime thriller with a new protagonist and a whole new world? And so I came up with Max Craigie. I came up with his sidekick Janie, and this story about a feud from 1830 that comes back to life in present day. And so it was purely by accident. I had no clue or no plans. I didn't know what came next. I hadn't taken it really seriously. And then I found myself all of a sudden, I've got this great idea. And I wrote about sort of 25% of it. And I thought, I think this might go somewhere. And I got in touch with an agent that I'd had some back and forth with. And I said, "What do you think about the concept?" He goes, "I absolutely love it. Can you send it to me?" And he signed me on the basis of that, on the basis of the partial that I sent him. And he said, "Please, look, just finish it. Go away and finish it." And so I finished the book, and I got a deal with HarperCollins. And I'm very fortunate in the editor that I had, a guy called Finn Cotton, who's now moved on. He got to Transworld. And he pushed me really hard and really helped me and edited me brilliantly and got me into hardback, and and then everything sort of snowballed and the book really took off. So yeah, I consider myself very fortunate to be where I am now.
Did you have a plan? So you said you've written another Max Craigie, right? Do you have a kind of a plan for when they're going to end? Are you going to write them forever, or are you just going to?
You know what? That I really like the characters. I like that people like the stories, and I think I've got plenty more ideas. There's plenty more things I can write about. I mean, the next one I've got, I haven't got a contract for the next ones yet, because I've only literally just yesterday delivered the manuscript of the 8th one. So yeah, there's going to be some negotiations to be had, but I'm pretty confident they're going to want some more. And yeah, I've got more ideas. The next one kind of writes itself. I've got it really nicely plotted out in my head, which is unusual for me. So I don't know how long they'll go on for. I'm probably going to have to broaden the horizons a little bit. I think corruption, police corruption, anti-corruption can only take me so far. But it is something that's still worth talking about. So at the moment, yeah, there's more to be had with Max and the team. There's definitely more to be had. But I've got to keep an eye on it, because time is running with Max. In the same way that it's run with Rebus. Max is getting older. He in book 1 he was separated from his wife. At the end of book 1 he got back with his wife. Book 2, book 3, then his wife's now pregnant. Spinning forward now, he's got a 1-year-old in the latest book. So time is going to move with him, because I think that makes it more interesting for me. Because every time I sit down to write a new book, I'm going to think, well, what's he been doing? What's his life like? How old is Evie, his daughter, now? Nutmeg's starting to get a bit old. I've got to start addressing these things, but I think that makes it a bit more interesting.
I mean, yeah. We can't have would you have a scene where Nutmeg dies? I don't know how your readers would feel about that.
Not well. Not good. I don't know. The other thing is, right, Nutmeg is actually a real dog. Nutmeg is actually my very good friend's actual real dog. I mean, I use my own dog. My own dog is Peggy, who is like a bit of a social media star now with her bin men antics. But yeah, I have to think about that one, because my very, very good friends have a dog, a little cockapoo called Nutmeg. So I've got to, I have to be a bit careful about that. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'll park that.
You're very careful in the books to sort of make sure that Nutmeg's always okay.
Oh yeah,
like she's always someone to go to and someone to look after her. And
yeah, well, I tell you, that is, I mean, living where I do in Scotland, the sort of areas I live in Scotland, very often you do get these dogs where they don't really need looking after. You don't have to, no one needs to. You don't worry about what your dog's doing, because your dogs just hang around at the house, and if they choose to just stay there. And you see the farm dogs, because I live in a very rural area, and all the farm dogs, they're not in the house very much. They don't, but they don't go anywhere. They just knock about the house. It's just knock about the garden and the house and things like that, or go and sit in the shed or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. That is a worry for the future. We're all right at the moment, but I might have to address it in a year or two. Hopefully, it doesn't bear thinking about.
I mean, I think it makes it more interesting for your readers as well if you're carrying it along in a real time, because they are going to get invested in Max and his wife and things, aren't they? Want to know what's happening as well. So keeping it sort of in one place wouldn't that reader involvement.
I like to think so. I like to think that people do want to know what he's up to, want to know what's happening in his life, and on a wider front. I mean, I don't really go into the sort of family life of anybody else. I mean, with Ross, it's almost like I don't know if anyone remembers it, but remember the program Minder back in the day. You never get to meet Arthur Daly's wife. It was always her indoors, which I always thought was quite funny. And so, I mean, we've never met, even though Ross Fraser goes on about his wife all the time, we've never met her, which I think is quite funny, really. And then you've got Janie, who's got her girlfriend, Melissa, who she's now, she's settled with and lives with and things like that. I have gone into that. But Barney lives in a van. So, I like their backstories, but, there has to be a limit on it. there has to be a limit on these things, you know. And there will come a time if I do write these for another few years, I'll have to think, well, hang on, Barney's going to be like well in his 70s or something, you know, and then what to do? I mean, I have introduced another character in who's called Clive, who is something of a hacker, a computer hacker. I did bring him in the last book, When Shadows Fall. He's come back in because he was quite a fun character to write. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I know I plan the book I'm writing. I don't think about a series arc. I don't think about the next book. I mean, I have got a clue about the next book just because, you know, I've got a contract negotiation coming up. So you want to give the publishers a bit of an idea that you know what you're talking about. Yeah, so we'll see what happens next.
That's interesting. Did you set out for it to be a series? Or
well, I mean, yes, I knew it was going to be a series because when I first got signed, I wrote the book, and then you never think about what's going to happen to that book until you get a deal. Because there's no point thinking about it until you get a deal. There's no point writing another one if you've not got a publishing deal, unless you're, you know, want to be a self-publisher. But when I got signed on a 3-book deal, so I knew at least there was going to be 3 books. And then obviously the first one did really well. You know, I got really fortunate with it. It got longlisted for the McIlvanney Prize. It was Waterstone's Scottish Book of the Month, and so sold really, really well. So I was pretty confident they would then want 3 more. And because I was writing quite quickly, I'd already written the first 3 by the time that, you know, it was even McIlvanney Scottish Book of the Month. And then they'd already signed me. So then they'd signed me again for 3 more. And then before I knew it, I'd written them. So it kind of became a series by default, whether I liked it or not, because, you know, that's what happened in terms of the business of it. They want, you know, let's face it, publishers love series because you attract an audience that will kind of almost buy the book without thinking about it. You know, they were, you know, if people really, most people will order the next Rebus when it comes online without even reading anything about it. They'll just automatically pre-order it because they want to read the next Rebus. So yeah, it's kind of just crept up on me, really.
I call those people you shut up and take my money authors.
Yeah, I mean, I've had those. You know, whenever I know there's another Greg Hurwitz book coming, I'll buy it. I don't even read the blurb. I just buy it. I just pre-order it, you know. If Ben McIntyre for his non-fiction books, I'll just buy it. I won't even, they're not even series fiction. They're standalone, not, you know, non-fictions, but I'll still buy the next Ben McIntyre book, irrespective of what it's about.
I feel that way about Ellie Griffith. And
yeah,
asking many other authors to count, which is why I'm normally chronically.
Yeah, Ellie is one of the lovely people, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to hanging out with her in Denmark next weekend, the weekend after. Yeah,
that is such an. It always sounds whenever anyone's been saying that they are going to that event, because it's held in a prison, isn't it, or an ex-prison?
Yeah, it is.
It's an amazing festival to go to.
The crowds were immense. I mean, we think in Britain we like crime fiction. The Scandinavians take it to another level. The crowds were huge. You had readers turning up with wheelie suitcases to stack their signed books into. Some of the crowds for a panel were 1,000. It's huge, enormous. It was a great festival, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Sarah's asked, and I don't know if you can answer this, but she said, what case is memorable for you that you were attached to?
I mean, the most notable case that I was attached to was the Levi Belfield case, the serial killer who killed 3 women that we know of: Marsha McDonald, Amelie Delagrange, and Millie Dowler. I was on a surveillance operation for that. Personally, the most notable one was a case of a corrupt solicitor I investigated who was facilitating breaches of immigration law, but on an industrial scale. I mean, his Proceeds of Crime Act forfeiture was £2.5 million. Yeah, there's been a lot. It was a full-on 25-year career. I mean, obviously Levi Belfield is the one that if I mention, everyone's ears prick up because, you know, certainly amongst crime fans, because yeah, he's obviously quite significant, obviously a hideous, horrible, vile individual who is rightly now serving a whole life sentence. But it was a long career, you know, and it becomes, it's the day job, you know, and you just get up, you come into work and you do your job and you go home again. So there's so much of other stuff that I've done over the years that I've kind of forgotten about. But yeah, no, and it's, you know, I left over 10 years ago now, and I've been, you know, living up in the Highlands for the last 10 years. So I'm quite far removed from it now. But yeah, it's still, you know, it still sometimes keeps me awake. But that's another story, really.
Yeah, I can imagine. Is it hard to write sort of stories about the crimes and not, because you must have to be careful to not go into details of things that you've been involved in?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm obviously beholden to the Official Secrets Act. There are things I can't talk about. There are things I did that I have to keep to myself. But you know, I'm a long time gone now. I do like to think I can lift the curtain a little bit into the world of policing and covert policing and serious organized crime policing, because I think people do want to hear about it. And you know what, we see it all the time on the TV, on some of there's so much really good true crime TV out there now. You know, some amazing, brilliantly done shows like, you know, 24 Hours in Police Custody is class TV. So, but yeah, I guess as a crime writer, there are a few of us ex-cops writers out there. Obviously, Claire McIntosh is probably the most successful of us. Graham Bartlett, you know, and you know, there's a number of ex-cops. John Sutherland, of course, ex-superintendent, mate of mine. So there are a few of us out there writing crime now.
And I was going to ask you about that, because there's like the Bridge Docs, Graham, John Sutherland, like you said, all like writing amazing crime novels. You like, do you think there's a sort of draw for readers to people who were involved in the police, like, because there's that level of authenticity in the writing?
Yeah, I mean, we all want to believe that the stuff we're reading could happen, don't we? We want to, you know, we all want to believe that it could happen, and I guess reading it from someone who's been at the forefront of it. I mean, John and Graham were both much higher ranked than me. You know, they were both chief superintendents. I was a mere detective sergeant. I like to say one of the people who actually did the work, whilst they all just did things like setting strategy and all that sort of nonsense. But yeah, I think people want to believe that some of the crime stories they read are authentic or are true or could be true. Because we want to all get as close to possible, you know. And the fact is now that if you write wholly implausible, inaccurate crime fiction, you're going to get called out on it, because readers are smart and readers have got access to a lot of these TV shows that show it in action and show what happens. So if you get it wrong, you will attract the ire of some readers. So yeah, I mean, it's easy for me to get it right. It's easy for me to make, I think, books feel authentic because I have been there, I have done it. But you know, it all comes down to the story. It's got to be a good story. You've got to have good characters. You've got to have nice plots. You've got to keep the pages turning. You'll have good pace. They're the things that really count. And if you can give it some authenticity, then hopefully that's, you know, the cherry on the cake.
Do you ever? Because I know if I watch something with terrible science in it, it makes me really annoyed. Do you ever watch like crime shows and go, that's ridiculous? Sort of have
all the time.
To shout at the TV because they've done it so wrong.
All the time. If they get it ridiculously wrong, I can't keep watching because it just annoys me too much. But you know what? The things that make me love a police-related crime show is the characters. It's the it's the writing, it's the pace. I mean, I love Blue Lights. The Northern Irish Belfast-based crime thriller. Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. It's not so much a police thing, but it's a crime thing. But Kin, again, based in Dublin sort of organised crime. I just loved it. But if I'm going to go to the shows I've really loved and that have really done it for me more than anything, I have to go to America, because I think The Wire is the best thing that's ever been on TV. Closely followed by The Shield. And I don't know if that's particularly authentic or not, but it feels authentic to me. And it's an incredibly compelling, fast-paced, with believable characters and stories and messages and everything you could want. So yeah, I can find it challenging to watch some British stuff if it's too far-fetched, or if the relationships between the protagonists or between the police officers feel wrong to me. It just bothers me. And I mean, my wife used to be a social worker. Anything to do with social work that's on TV, she can't deal with it because she just gets too annoyed. And I understand that. So it's a hard ask.
Did you ever read the book? Because there was books and by the people who did Wire, didn't they? Because they also did Homicide.
Life on the Street.
Yeah.
And there's another one that the people from The Wire did, which was called We Own This City, which is based on it. It's a limited series. I think is it on Disney? No, Now TV. It's on Now TV. And that is absolutely fantastic. It's all based on a true story around a corrupt called the Gun Trace Task Force. Oh God, it was so good.
I've got the book of We Own This City on the side to read.
Oh, the show is terrific. It's all made by the same people who did The Wire. So yeah, if I want to watch, if it's really good cop drama, I want to watch. It tends to be set in America.
Leslie Field wants to know if you thought about writing your autobiography. She thinks it would be interesting.
I don't think I'd find it very interesting, which is the main problem. And I don't think I've done anything that. I don't think it'd be that interesting, really. And I don't think I'd find it very interesting to do. I think by definition I'm just a storyteller, and I like the stories to be totally made up by me and totally the product of my mind. So I don't see me writing a true crime book or a memoir. I don't think I'm that interesting, really. You know, I think I like making stuff up. That's far more fun.
Do you think there's any? Because I was wondering this when I was reading Max. Do you think there's sort of bits of you in those characters that you're writing?
I don't think so. Max is much tougher than me. No, I don't think so. I think I write about characters that are amalgams of people I've met, not just in the police, from elsewhere. Probably there's a little bit of my son in Max. Maybe they're about a similar age. But yeah, no, there's none of me. I'm not in them at all. I'm nowhere near. I'm just the narrator.
Maybe your love of dogs, though, with Nutmeg and people. That might be in there.
Yeah, maybe something like that. I'm just some old guy now with walking his dog.
That's not a bad thing, though. You're living the dream. You're kind of retired, writing.
Yeah, no, honestly, I am kind of retired from the police, but I'm actually quite busy now, and it's great. It's great. What a chance to have a second go. You know, have another chapter. Because I didn't know what I was going to do when I left the police. I knew I wanted to leave. I left for a number of reasons, but I knew I wanted to leave, and I knew I wanted to leave the south of England. And then I obviously ended up in the Highlands of Scotland, kind of sort of living the dream, really. You know, being able to see 40 miles out my window to the Cairngorms. So, yeah, no, I'm really lucky. So, you know, it is kind of living the dream, really. A job that doesn't feel like work, really. It's not really work. It's not work at all.
Laura says she feels like ex-police writers are the best at not stretching their dramatic license to breaking point. So protagonists don't get through dangerous situations totally unscathed and don't just walk off major life-threatening injury.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that, you can. I truly believe you can push it. You can push people through it, and you have to accept, if you're writing serious fiction, that I think it was even, what was it, in terms of suspension of belief, Lee Child said, the only bit of suspension of belief I need for the Jack Reacher novels is that the same shit can happen to the same guy over and over and again. And that kind of is true, because, I mean, Christ, Max has been right through the ringer. And, he really, if you had been through as much as he's been through, not just, in his time before the police in Afghanistan and places like that, you think you'd hope he'd quit. Because you think, hang on a second, my number's going to come up in a minute if I don't stop. So, yeah, you have got to require some suspension of belief. And obviously, I am going to put Max in more sticky situations than your average cop would probably experience during an average career. I mean, when I think the amount of times he's been at gunpoint and, had people trying to stab him or all this sort of stuff. But, we are writing fiction here. These are stories. This is fiction, and it's got to be exciting. So you've got that balance between keep writing about the same characters that you like writing about and people like reading about, and yet still keep it as an exciting, because my books are supposed to be exciting, sort of seat of your pants crime thrillers as opposed to police procedurals. So yeah, I am aware that a lot is happening to Max, and how much realistically can it be expected to happen to Max. But I think it's fine. I think that's the one thing people will forgive. I think people will forgive that the same stuff keeps happening to Max.
I think the thing that when I read books by sort of people who are ex-police, there's only one other author I can think of that does it as well, who isn't. Is that people like John and you and the Bridge Docs and Graham often understand what draws people into crime. So it's not, you don't get this like caricature of like a really evil person. There's often like a reason why they've been drawn into it. And you sort of get a deeper understanding of the people, and it's more realistic.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to write about a crime that happens, and often murder comes into it. And it's not enough, I don't think, to just describe that it happens. I think we need to at least try to understand why it's happened. Why? What's the motivation? Why is this person? Sometimes it can be just money. It can be just money. It can be a business transaction. If you're talking about like hitmen or things like that. Other people, like in the Night Watch, the antagonist in that. It was one of the things that when I went through edits, I said, we need to know why this person is doing this thing. Why are they doing this particular thing? What happened in their life that made that happen? So I then had to go back and think, right, okay, well, let's think about this. Why? Because people aren't born bad. I mean, you do meet criminals that do it because they like it and they're good at it. My good friend Tony Kent is a criminal barrister, also a wonderful author. He is a criminal defense barrister who defends really serious criminals, professional criminals. These guys aren't doing it because they were treated badly when they were at school. They're not ones because of they don't do the crimes they do because they were neglected. They do it because they like it and they're good at it. So yeah, do have that. That does happen. But then you also have people. I mean, why did Levi Belfield choose to murder people? Why? What's behind that? And I'm not a psychologist, but can I come up with a plausible reason why? Because I have written about serial killers. Why one of those serial killers was a serial killer? Why? What was there in their backstory that made that happen? And it is interesting to talk about. I do enjoy talking about that, and thinking now about whenever I'm writing a book, I do think about what is the motivation? Why is this person doing this particular thing? And sometimes it's just money or power, but sometimes it's got far more deep-seated reasons than that. So yeah, it's interesting to explore.
It is. The only person I can think of who's not a policeman who writes them as well is a guy called Chris Beck.
Who, sorry?
There's a guy called Chris Beck, and he writes like this gangland series set in Hull, and he's so good at getting sort of those people who are just drawn into crime by one or two kind of wrong choices.
Yeah, and it literally can be. It can be that. You know, no one's born bad. That's the simple fact. No one's born bad. Stuff happens that makes you make these choices. Nature, nurture, and all that.
Mary says, what hobbies do you have?
I love to walk my dog. I do that a lot. I love to read. When my back is in one piece, I like to go out on my bike. Just I love where I live. I live in the most beautiful part of the UK, to my mind. And I read a lot of books. But then I'm always writing, so I'm always writing. I'm busy. I've become busy again, so it's cool.
You a fan of music? You've got a Mogwai poster.
Yeah, I love music. I love I love music. I go to gigs pretty regularly. I've been a few times. Yeah, went actually saw Mogwai. Actually went with Ed James, who probably won't be watching because he's lazy, and I went with Ian Rankin to go and see Mogwai a couple of years back. So I love music, anything like that.
That's a pretty glamorous kind of audience for Mogwai, isn't it?
Yeah, he's
some great kind of Scottish crime writers in the audience. What have you? So, if you read a lot, what have you read recently and enjoyed?
I'm currently reading Callum McSorley's latest. Callum is a fantastic author. I can't remember the life of it. I beg your pardon?
Is it Rat Race?
Yes, currently reading that. I've got heaps of books to read because my problem is when I'm writing a first draft, which I feel like I always am, it's really very, very hard to have somebody else's voice in your head because it can be quite distracting when you're trying to, create your own first draft. But I'm currently reading that at the moment. I'm really, really enjoying it. And I've got Gaz Wright's book teed up. GD Wright, Gaz Wright. I've got his next teed up to read. And my good mate Mason Cross, also known as Alex Knight, also known as now Gav Bell, has written a book which I'm really desperate to read, but I can't read him until I've read the other ones. I think it's called 138 Main Street. One of the really, really great premise for a book is that there's been several murders at an address 138 Main Street in the USA, but there are several thousand 138 Main Streets, and it looks like now they're going to have to get to try and stop the next murder that's going to happen at 138 Main Street. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Sounds good. I am actually currently reading a book that has your name on the front cover.
Oh, thank you very much. Which one?
As a kind of recommendation. It's like you providing a blurb for someone.
All right, okay. Who's this, or can you not tell me?
Marion Todd.
Oh, I love Marion. Marion is a fabulous author, and she's a wonderful human being.
You've been asked where Peggy and Ted are tonight.
They're going to be sat in the living room in front of the fire where it's warmer than where I currently am.
That's a fair answer. I mean, you could probably have bribed them in with a biscuit or something.
I'm sure I could. But then Peggy would become a pest because she doesn't know how to not be a pest when she's not required to be.
But dogs are still adorable.
Oh, totally. She honestly is my best mate. I hang out with her all the time, so it's really cool.
I used to tell all my kids when we had to do Zoom like parents sessions in like the lockdown and things that if I got to meet their pets, they get extra good comments.
Yeah, dogs make everything better. That's the
Yeah.
reality of it. Dogs make everything better.
If I get to meet your dog when I'm doing your parents' evening comments, you're going to get much better comments.
Yeah, definitely.
It worked well. I got to meet lots of animals. You also got asked why you chose to relocate to Scotland.
We'd been coming up here. I've got some family up here, and we've been coming up for quite a long time, visiting, and we'd kind of fallen in love with the place because it is unbelievably gorgeous up here. The air is unbelievably clean. The scenery's, superb. The climate is actually really, really good. I live in a place called the Black Isle, and it's a microclimate. I don't know what it is, and I think it's how the geography works and everything, but we do get sheltered from a lot of the worst weather that comes from the west coast. So the rainfall isn't that bad at all, and it's just a really nice place to live. It's very peaceful. I've got lovely neighbours. Everything's quite convenient, and it's really good. And I'd spent a long time in the police, and I was living in the home counties. I was living in St Albans, just north of London. And I was commuting into London every day, which used to take me, on a good day, an hour and a half each way. And it became kind of overwhelming, and the job was overwhelming. And I got quite unwell, actually. Sort of towards the end of my career, I was fairly unwell, and with a condition that I luckily got over it. And it sort of struck me that, what am I doing? Schlepping into London every day. You only get one shot, and here I am going into London every day, and life's really tough. And then maybe there's something else. Maybe I can do something new. And so we just made the call, and we moved 600 miles north, and we've been up here. It'll be 11 years this year. Yeah, it's great. It's lovely. It's a lovely place to live. We've got a nice little literary festival just down the road in Cromarty that's happening in May, which I'm appearing at, along with Effie, who I think's online. She was.
Yes, yeah, she was. She was looking.
I think Rob Parker's going to be there. A few other people. So yeah, looking forward to that. And yeah, it's just a good place to be. It's a really good place to be.
So you can be quite busy. You have got a lot of events that you are doing.
Yeah, I've got a fair bit on. Which is nice. It's nice to be busy. It's nice to go to different places and see different people. And what else am I going to do in my time? I don't play golf, and there's only so much dog walking you can do. So I know I'm lucky.
Do you want to remind all the people who are watching, because there are quite a lot, what they are going to go away and buy if they haven't already got it? I mean, obviously, all the true fans have had it on pre-order, so they've probably got it already. But
The Dark Heart, and it's the seventh in the series. I think it's the one I like the most. My wife said it's the best so far, and I tend to believe it. She says, because she wouldn't say it, she didn't mean it. So yeah, if you fancy buying it, please do. I'd be very grateful.
What's the cover image of? Is it linked to the story?
Well, kind of. Obviously, cover design. I have to say, HQ, part of HarperCollins, who are my publishers, they've written fantastic. They've done great covers for me. So I'm really, really delighted with it. There is a scene on a bridge in the book, but it's not that bridge. But I think they just, it's all about making it look great on a shelf, making it pop out on a shelf. And I did an event last night in Inverness with Lynn Anderson, and I saw it on the shelf in the store, and I thought, oh yeah, it does look good. It does look good. So yeah, The Dark Heart, that's the latest one, and I really like it. So I hope other people will.
You're just getting to hang out with all the great crime authors, aren't you, at the moment? Lynn Anderson as well.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, it was. I was with her last night, and she interviewed me about this book, and I do owe Lynn a real debt of gratitude, because when I first had written my first book with a tiny publisher, I managed to blag my way on the lineup at Cromarty Crime as a spotlight author to speak before Lynn was going to do her talk, because Lynn's written a million books and she's really popular and all this sort of thing. And so I was a bit necky, and I sent her a message and say, look, I'm going to be speaking before you at Cromarty Crime. Do you fancy reading my book? And she said, yes, I'd love to. So I sent it to her, and she said some lovely things about it. And then I came to speak, do my little speak, and I went in, and I was a bit nervous, obviously, and I went and introduced myself, and I said, how long have I got? And she said, Neil, just take as long as you like. And so, of course, me being a bit of a gobshite, I ended up speaking for about 20 minutes. And then at Bloody Scotland, I got asked, would I want to do a spotlight at Bloody Scotland? So I ended up then speaking before Lynn Anderson and Alex Gray at the Albert Halls at Bloody Scotland. So that was a real, it was really great. And then to go all the way now where I'm being interviewed by Lynn Anderson, it felt really cool. That felt really cool.
Yeah, that must have been quite a nice moment.
It really was.
Show everyone the book cover again, just to finish off with, and then a massive thanks to you for joining us for tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.